Cannabis Health Radio. I'm Ian Jessup.
And I'm Corey Yelland.
Our guest today is a grower and has been for many decades. He's also the owner of a cannabis testing company called Purity Testing. And joining us from beautiful Hawaii is Kevin Sommerfeldt. Kevin, thank you very much for doing this. Now, living in Hawaii, don't you ever get tired of walking outside in the beautiful warm sunshine every day of the year?
Not really.
You don't miss the changes of the season, the rain, the snow, the slush, the wet?
We notice changes in the seasons here after you've been here for a long time. It's really subtle, but we have a little bit rainier season and a little bit cooler in the winter, and then the summer we're prone to the hot, humid, subtropical, when we've got depressions or possible hurricanes coming by us. So it's different from summer to winter.
Kevin, you're not getting any sympathy from us. People in North America head to Hawaii in the winter. Kevin, tell us... Sorry?
And I got out there right away. So.
Yeah. Tell us the story of how you got involved in the cannabis growing business.
I've always been a proponent of cannabis since a very young age. I knew it helped me with my asthma. I don't know why. I didn't know the science behind it, but I knew that when I'd smoke, my lungs were clearer. So I started growing down by the local creek and eventually breeding and meeting up with seed companies and getting various excellent strains and crossbreeding again and developing stuff that would survive out here in Hawaii that didn't get moldy and stuff in the humidity. And then I started developing these tinctures that are glycerin-based. And I found out early on, dealing with CBD companies and doing my testing, that a lot of it was pretty much fake stuff. You need the THC to really help the CBD interact. So I've developed a tincture that I've been letting go for affordable rates, way cheaper than any other stuff you find online, and it actually works. I'm actually sending a sample of my tincture out to my partner lab, Synergies Analytics in Colorado, to be fully tested for this new batch I made, so we can provide all the test results for everybody.
It's rather counterintuitive, isn't it, that you had asthma and you smoked marijuana, cannabis, to relieve your asthma?
Yeah, I found out right away that when the first time somebody offered me to smoke, and I went, wow, I could cough out the stuff out of my lungs and breathe real easy. And my tinctures are mostly aimed at pain relief. I had a hip replacement recently, but I had to wait almost 20 years to qualify for it because I was not considered old enough yet to get it. So now that I'm 60, I could get my hip replaced. And during that time, I relied on my tincture for pain relief to get around. And I've also developed a couple different styles of tincture, some that have spirulina and bee pollen and Prometheus bacteria that helps with Crohns, and just been working it. My motto is pretty much patience before profits, and I just try to distribute to everybody that needs it at an extremely fair price.
Kevin, when you had your hip replacement, prior to your hip replacement, were you using your tincture of CBD plus THC? Were you applying it topically at all?
I applied it topically to some skin cancer spots I had, and they went away. But I would ingest one eyedropper full about 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, and that would kill the pain.
Kevin, you mentioned that at one point you were collecting seeds or using seeds from strains that don't get moldy or are less likely to get moldy. Can you name some of those strains for people?
The most reliable one for mold resistance for me is Skunk Dog, and Trainwreck is a good one for out here. Doesn't get the powdery mildew and the botrytis mold. Aurora Indica is another good one. Those seeds are available through. Just slipped my mind now.
People can look them up online. That's no problem.
Gorilla Glue is another one that is pretty mold resistant.
Which one was that, Kevin?
Gorilla Glue is a pretty good mold resistant
Gorilla Glue.
And I've recently crossed Gorilla Glue on my Skunk Dog to see if I could get some new hybrid vigor and even more mold resistance.
You sound like a rapper with your skunk dog and Gorilla Glue.
Now, didn't you have a seed company at one point?
Yes, I was Dr. Professor Seed Company for a while. And about the time I moved to Hawaii, the Big Island, I was in Maui at that time. When I moved to the Big Island, my partner, Mark Emery, the Cannabis Culture magazine, pretty much had things go awry. And so I pretty much stopped the seed company at that point for a while.
Yeah, that would probably be incentive to do that.
Yeah, I didn't want to be charged with attempting to overthrow the United States government like he did. So we parted ways at that point.
Kevin, talk to us a little bit about growing. When we spoke last night, you were saying you actually grow your plants in volcanic ash. Was that correct? Did I get that right?
I use fresh black volcanic cinders that we have an active volcano here, and so it's constantly spewing lava and cinders. It's been erupting since 1980, I believe, and so there's an unlimited supply, and it's got so many nutrients and minerals in it, being fresh from the center of the earth. And then I use for my fertilizer, I just use blue-green algae, spirulina. And between those two, that's all my plants need to be fully healthy, happy, and big.
I can see plane loads of people heading for Hawaii, coming back with volcanic ash.
That's right.
It's the same blue-green algae that people eat in smoothies. It's basically just spirulina.
Yeah.
Kevin, tell us about some of the folks that you've helped over the years and some of the issues that they've had to deal with that have been rectified through the use of cannabis.
It's been a wide range of patients from as young as 3 years old to in the late 80s. One of my neighbor's mother-in-law was suffering with Alzheimer's, and amongst her issues, at one point she had stopped eating and drinking, and it had been a couple days, and they called me up saying, "Is there anything you can do?" I recommended a small amount of tincture, just put in the corner of her mouth and see what happens. And we gave her some tincture that night, and in the morning she woke up, looked at my friend Steve, and said, "Where have you been?" She got up, ate, drank, watched Charlie Chan movies, and lived 3 months longer.
Wow.
The hospice nurses called me up and said, "How do I get some?" The youngest patient, a 3-year-old, was suffering from a rare type of seizure that apparently was not noticeable to the eye, but she would just get real silent, and they said that she was having these multiple seizures hundreds of times a day. And when the tincture was used, it dropped down to just a few seizures a day.
Now, what was the tincture that you gave her? Was it all CBD and really low THC, or a good blend of both?
It's whole cannabis tincture. It has THC.
Yeah. Okay, good.
When I cook the stuff down, I do it in a crock pot for 20 hours. And I use a pound of my skunk dog, which is actually 21.38% THC on average and 0.11 CBD. But I don't heat it high enough to decarb the marijuana and activate the THC, but it's still in there, which helps. It's a good carrier to activate the CBD. CBD alone, I've found, really isn't as effective as the whole cannabis tincture.
Kevin, there are a lot of companies selling CBD, and you referenced this earlier in our discussion, that some of them aren't good quality CBD products. How do you feel about what's out in the market today?
I feel like a lot of it is trying to take advantage of people. The hemp-based CBD products aren't as effective as whole cannabis tincture, and they're selling them for $35 to $50 for a half-ounce bottle. And whereas a whole tincture is properly priced at $20 for a full-ounce bottle. It's patience before profits. I mean, you got to help people. If it's too expensive, they're not going to be able to try it. And I do give out lots of samples to people to just see if it helps them. If it does, then thank the Lord.
What's the most gratifying part of your work?
Seeing people get results. Seeing people that don't have problems with fibromyalgia, people that aren't having seizures, people that are able to get pain relief. Like my wife has a bad back, and there's times when she just can't get up and move around, and it sometimes takes 3 whole eyedroppers of tincture, and she gets up and she's moving around and cooking and cleaning and feeling great. That kind of result is what I love. When I have people call me back saying, oh, everybody's loving this stuff, it actually works.
As opposed
That's
to
the best part, knowing that I'm providing something that actually works for people.
Yeah, it works as opposed to the stuff you get in many dispensaries, which, when it's analyzed, really isn't what it claims to be, correct?
Exactly, yes. And I actually, in the early days on my testing website, I promoted a company of CBD products. And then when I actually got some and started using it compared to what I was making, I completely dropped all alliance with this company and do not sell their products anymore.
Tell us about your testing facility.
I just have a small office at my house, a 12 by 12 office that I have a MyDX unit, and occasionally when the GC is available, we have a small gas chromatograph, but right now that's off in Colorado for testing out there.
And so you test your product. Do you test any other products that are out in the market just to see what they are like?
Yes, I've tested probably 500 or more different products. It's a wide range. I like to know what I'm using and what I'm helping people with. And as I said, I will have test results on this new batch of tincture within probably a week. And so everybody can see it proudly displayed on my website so they know what they're getting into.
Kevin, do you just sell product in Hawaii or do you sell it elsewhere?
I sell to anyone that needs it. I just have to ship quite discreetly to make sure that neither party gets in any kind of heat.
I was wondering because in the United States, federal law is still in opposition to cannabis. So if you get caught, you're in deep doo-doo.
That's the risk we take.
Yeah, it's worth the risk.
It's worth it. I think it is. Seeing the people that I've helped and hearing their results and the praise for the product and how it's worked for them, I accept that risk as part of my it's part of my kuleana, part of it's my trip. You know, I do this knowing that it's risky, but it helps people.
Kevin, have you ever treated animals?
Yes, actually, I've been treating my dog Paca for she's a albino pit bull, so being white, she sunburns really bad on her belly. And she loves laying on her back, sunburn in her belly. So I've had numerous instances of skin cancer popping up that I've been treating with the tincture topically as well as orally. I give her a full eyedropper of tincture in her food every morning.
The skin cancer one is really interesting because Corey and I have... sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Corey and I have interviewed a number of people who have had skin cancer, some of which was absolutely grotesque looking, because it was just these things coming out of their head or their body. But when they took cannabis and took it internally and applied it topically, in pictures before and after, you could see the thing disappear, and all that's left is this silver dollar-sized mark of clear, bright pink skin. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. A friend of mine used some Rick Simpson oil, a small half rice grain sized dose in the morning in her dog's food, and applied some tincture topically, and in 37 days a tumor on her dog's leg disappeared. The vet says, I don't know, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. You know, it's great.
Kevin, over the years, the 40 years you've been growing cannabis, what sort of lessons have you learned about growing?
Keep it organic. Don't use sprays. If your plants are super organic and healthy, they resist all the problems that you have to buy chemicals for to fix. The only chemical I would consider using on cannabis would be neem oil. And I rarely ever have to use it. With the combination of the volcanic cinders and the blue-green algae, the plants are so strong and healthy that they resist pretty much all the problems that we've had in the past years.
Now, growing cannabis in Hawaii is certainly different than growing cannabis in Colorado, is it not?
Absolutely. We have out here we have a very high humidity, and it's usually in the mid-80s. Totally perfect conditions for everything to go wrong. So it takes a strong plant and a careful eye, keeping track of it to keep from everything just going to fuzz.
When you say going wrong, is that because of the high humidity?
Mostly, yeah. We have the high humidity, and we're out in a tropical rainforest. So we have various attacks from bugs, anything from slugs, snails, caterpillars, stinging moths. Every year there seems to be something new that we have to deal with. That's the tropics.
So these slugs actually like cannabis?
Pardon?
So slugs actually like cannabis?
Oh, yes. Yes, they do. They attack it pretty good. Your leaves will be chewed away. You'll see a little stem sticking out. Everything else is gone.
Whoops.
Kevin, do you grow for other people?
I grow for myself and for my wife, and I have product available for my neighbors that are. I have a couple of different neighbors that are doing chemo, so I supply them. It helps with the nausea from the chemo.
Do you remember the first person you ever helped?
Besides yourself.
That's so long ago, I can't actually remember the first person. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's usually the first person that you helped, and well, I guess in some cases you've helped yourself. So that was the first person you helped, and that took you on the road that you've traveled over the last 40 years, right?
Yes, it did.
Kevin, you mentioned earlier something about a tincture you have that's working very well with Crohn's. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
For that, I do the basic tincture combo that I add the spirulina, and then I add in bee pollen and Prometheus bacteria. That combination of those three seem to calm the gut fairly well. I know that some people with Crohn's have had really good luck with the product Kratom, but when I add these, especially the Prometheus bacteria and the bee pollen, seems to really calm the gut and slow the Crohn's.
What's the THC content in that, approximately?
I don't know on this. I'm waiting for my test results on this next batch, but the cannabis that I used was 21.38% THC and 0.11% CBD, but not heating it high enough to cause the THC to decarb. It doesn't seem like there's any THC in there.
Okay, so it's going to be non-psychotropic.
Right. It won't get you stoned, but it will give you instant pain relief.
Awesome. Good to know. This your company, Synergies Analytics in Colorado. Do they do testing for the public and dispensaries, etc., who want their product tested, or what exactly do they do?
Yes, Justin Warman is my partner there in Colorado, and he does testing for public, for dispensaries, does the cannabis cup testing, has been for years. So he keeps pretty busy out there. I'm not as busy here in Hawaii, but when needed, he does come here with the GC, and we do testing of the other products, edibles and things which I can't test on my machine.
What's the climate like in Hawaii as far as cannabis is concerned? Where are you? Are you guys like a medical state or just...
It's a medical state here, but they have really dropped the ball. It's been medical allowed since 2000, and we still don't have any dispensaries open. Actually, I guess there was one opened last month in Maui, but in 2 days they were sold out. what has happened in Hawaii here, they just said, well, just grow your own. And the climate of Hawaii culturally has always been a cannabis-friendly place. So right now, it's not uncommon to find big plants growing in everybody's yard all the way up and down the street. It's rare that I go to somebody's house and don't see cannabis growing.
Is there a limit on
everybody? Just
sorry to interrupt, Kevin. Is there
what we need?
Is there a limit on how many plants people can have?
You're allowed 10 plants per person and maximum stash of a quarter pound.
Okay, now haven't they just changed it in Colorado where you're only allowed 4 plants now?
I haven't heard what the new changes in Colorado were.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 2. Not very many anyway.
Oh, wow. Some people were growing these monster plants that are 2 to 3 pounds apiece, and then they're exceeding the limit allowed. So that probably is why that got changed, because for a while, Colorado, they were allowing you to have something like 18 plants.
Mm-hmm.
When Canada legalizes recreational cannabis on July 1st of next year, you'll only be allowed to grow 4 plants per household, not 4 plants per person, which is crazy. Yeah. Because if you have a household of 5 people, you can only grow 4 plants. If you're one person, you can grow 4. I mean, it
doesn't really make sense, but we'll take anything at this stage in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your lab in Colorado, where in Colorado is it?
He bounces around. He was in Boulder. Now he's in North Glen, Colorado.
So if people had product and they wanted to get it tested, do they have to be from within the state of Colorado?
I don't believe so.
It's just a matter of getting it through the mail.
Yes, yeah. And that's interesting here, too, in the state of Hawaii, because the federal laws are still saying that cannabis is a Schedule I drug and all this. We can't transport between islands even, because you're going on an airplane, which is federal. You're going, across the ocean on a boat, which is, federal. It's really kind of weird. So we're having to develop laboratories on every single island because we can't transport back and forth.
That's very interesting. I never thought of boats you're in federal jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. In plane, you're in federal jurisdiction. Kevin, if people want to...
It's kind of caused a dilemma here, and that's partly why everything came to a grinding halt as far as moving forward with the grow facilities and testing facilities and dispensaries.
Kevin, if people want to find out what sort of product you offer, give us a website that they can go to.
PurityTesting.com.
Very simple, PurityTesting.com. Kevin, anything you'd like to tell us in conclusion?
I would just like to wish everybody a wonderful day.
Well, that's great. We wish you a wonderful day as well. Thanks for doing this, Kevin. We appreciate it.
No problem. You can contact me anytime. Any questions, anybody needs any grow answers, solutions for problems, pest problems, fertilizer problems, strain advice, you can contact me through PurityTesting.com anytime.
Great. Thanks very much, Kevin. We greatly appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
Aloha.
If you've got a cannabis story that you'd like to tell us about, and you'd like to be interviewed on Cannabis Health Radio, then send us an email at info@cannabishealthradio.com. We've got a number of interviews coming up in the next few days of people who have contacted us, and there's some very interesting stories. So make sure you listen for that. And don't forget, you can contribute to Cannabis Health Radio by going to our website, cannabishealthradio.com, go to the donate button and make a contribution so we can continue bringing these interviews to you. Wherever you are in the world, thanks very much for listening.
You've been listening to the Cannabis Health Radio podcast. Visit our website, cannabishealthradio.com, and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.